All right, and we are live on this positive influence. This episode tonight is actually being recorded on St. Patty's Day, so I have to speak in this language all the night. No, I'm not going to do this the whole night, but we got it on St. Patty's Day. We're going to be recording this, so that's why you see the other artwork that I've got behind me that I'm kind of showing off to show different things on there. But we're going to have some fun on this show. I've been looking forward to having this guest on here for quite some time. We've been kind of figuring out exactly been the best time to bring him on. Finally figured out a time whenever he's actually got a project that is live right now on campaign. And we're definitely going to be discussing that. But we always talk about the passion that you put into your work and what comes of it that way and why it fuels you in that way. Well, this gentleman right here might answer some of those questions tonight in a very different way than y'all have been kind of seeing out there from some other people, simply because he puts a lot of it out there and you're going to see it in his work. So before we go ahead and keep this on me and my green hat that's up here right now, let's go ahead and bring me guest up here today. So here is Jason Pharo.
Hey, what's up, Phil?
What's going on, Jason?
Hey, thanks for having me on. I
Hey,
appreciate it.
appreciate you being here, man. It's been too long.
Absolutely.
But before we get going into all of the, and I'm going to go ahead and coin the phrase today because I say it every time, but now it actually means something, shenanigans.
Yeah, right on.
Go ahead and let them know who you are, what you do, and where to find you.
I am Jason Pharo. I am the head of my imprint, Pharo's Creative Studios. I am the creator, writer, and artist for the Convictor series, which is a series that I'm mainly concentrating on right now, about a ninja vigilante, very 90s kind of character who has he's a little bit of supernatural abilities, but his greatest gift is on my shirt. He has indomitable will. It's his will never break. His body will break before his will does. It could be considered a superpower, but it's also can also be considered a detriment to him. I tell everyone that it is his greatest strength and his biggest weakness. The man cannot quit, and that is often on display as he's getting pummeled. But yeah, that's where you can. Yep, you can find me anywhere. You can find me on primarily on Instagram, the Convictor. I'll pop right up for you. You can find me on YouTube. Pharo's Creative Studios is the channel, and you can also find me on Facebook as well as under the Convictor Comics. And I think I actually have Twitters now too. So Convictor Comics on Twitter or just Jason Pharo. You'll find me either way. I'm around.
There you go. Well, we'll find you one way or another. That is for
Yeah, that's
certain.
right.
Anybody who's having trouble for whatever reason, if the spelling is throwing you off, something like that, reach out to me if you want to, or reach out to Jason directly. And
Sure.
if you can get hold of him by his name on there and find, the actual page for this to follow along, because this series is it's an interesting series. I'm trying to do this without throwing too many spoilers out there because I have
That's
been.
all right. I talk so much about the character. It's fine.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
but I mean I've kept up with it since you come up with the issue one, and greatly looking forward to the one that's currently out right now on campaign.
Okay.
And we're going to get into why it has gotten my attention even more. Even though I've been following you up to this point.
Right.
But one thing that I want to kind of ask, kind of leading into this, is, and I think I brought this up on previous shows as well, but in case anybody's not completely caught up on that, you've been working on this for quite some time. Like this has been a passion project for many years. It's not just something you just came up with.
Decades would be the term. Yeah, I created the Convictor character. It's actually on the shirt I'm wearing now. I created him in like '84. I was 11, 12. Very much he was. I mean, I have lots of characters, but I have a couple main ones. And then Convictor was very much in the vein for me, like Punisher. He was a very vigilante type, anti-hero type, and when I originally created him, and but then he kind of you have something, you cultivate it, you grow it. I wasn't just satisfied with the archetype of dark vigilante. I wanted something more, and so I he became he's a former soldier, and then he was also a trained ninja warrior. Very Snake Eyes and from GI Joe was a massive influence for me as a kid, because I understood that someone could be a soldier and a warrior trained in another discipline. So that kind of steered me. I said that was perfect for my character, and I just grew them all these years. I drew them all the time. I made black and white ash cans all the time for my friends. Even my high school, I was allowed to have a weekly comic strip of the Convictor up on the wall so everyone could read it from week to week. Yeah, I did that, and then you graduate high school, you get a job, you start a life. Then I got I got married, had family, 20 years like that. Now I still drew the character here and there. I still drew him on things and doodled here and there. My kids all watch me do it, but it's just one of those things, right? And so fast forward, you know, I'm around 46. I was at 46 years old, and I mean, I'm gonna be 51 in a few days. I was 46 years old, and I was writing on a bucket list, right?
Hmm.
And I was writing things, all the things that you write. I was doing that. I was like, I'm gonna skydive and visit different, all that stuff. So my son, who was just fresh out of the army, just from the deployment, came and he was over and he said, saw me writing it, and he said, "Dad," he goes, "why don't you uh make?" You always said you wanted to make it into a real comic. Why don't you make it into a comic? Make that character you always draw into a comic. And it was flippant to me. I was like, I took it flippantly, whatever. I couldn't get the idea out of my head. I
Hmm.
really couldn't. And I said, what do comics look like these days? I've watched movies and, I would pick up an issue. I read all my old comics. I didn't really frequent comics as much as I did as a kid.
Hmm.
So I went into, I went online. I was like, man, indie comics are huge because the last indie comics I knew of before getting out of comics were Image Comics
Yes.
and like Valiant and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Uh, so I was like, wow, the indie comics are everywhere. They're all over the place. And then I also started looking into how do you self-publish comics?
Hmm.
And there's plenty of information on YouTube and Google. And so it kind of lit a fire under my ass. And I went and tried drawing, and I realized that 20 years art is absolutely perishable. And I had to learn some stuff again. Like I had to reteach myself like perspectives, clean up my anatomy, and realize that most comics now are drawn digitally. So there's also that. But I was a traditional artist, so I was stubborn. But yeah, I had to reteach myself a lot of things, and it really lit a fire under me. And yeah, I think like 2 years after that, I had my first book out, and
Hmm.
which was Hunter's Moon, the Convictor Hunter's Moon, which was
Yes.
a massive surprise how successful that was to me. Because I didn't think anybody else would care about this character, but me. But apparently, he looks so 90s. People love it. It's all I hear all the time. He looks so 90s. I'm like, but I created him in '84. But really, I did. The character that you see now, he was primarily formed. That the '90s were most certainly the seminal years, or the most formal years of the character. That's where I've solidified his story. I solidified his look. It was all done in the '90s. So
Hmm. And he's definitely got a very cool. You can see the '90s nostalgia to everything
yeah,
on there, but it
pouches.
still has a different feel, to the
Yeah,
way it's going. And the
right,
storyline is very, it's energetic. Like there's no point in there where I go along going, well, that could have been a little more energetic to build me up to go to the next
right,
page. It's like it's not action packed. Like I'm not going to say every single page is absolute action all the way through the thing because there's got to be story in there. But the
right,
way that you do it, you at least have it where it's a page turner. You're like, okay, what's going to happen next? And then you get to the next page and
right,
you're like, and then how did we get here? What happened to this point?
right.
So it's very
I've
cool
had
how you have it set up that way.
yeah, yeah, I've had a few people say to me that reading one of my books is like a little bit of context and then pedal to the metal, and I don't let
Yes.
off into the end of the book. Now I will tell you the Convicted book is a slow burn for his backstory. I
Hmm.
am very much I'm writing the book for someone like me that would want to read it. And what I enjoyed is as reading comics as a kid, not knowing everything about the character, picking
Correct.
up pieces of the character from book to book. That was important to me. I usually gravitate like Moon Knight. I didn't know everything about Moon Knight as a kid. That's my absolute 100% favorite Marvel hero. And but you learn pieces of him from story to story, and there was always a new wrinkle to his backstory, his personality. So yeah, I cut my teeth on stuff like that. And so the Convictor is like that. Like I always tell everybody, like each book will give you a few puzzle pieces. Because I never personally liked books where I would open it up and it tells me right off the bat in the inside cover, this is so and so, and he was born here and did this and does this and does this. I'm like, well, shit, I want to find it out from reading the issue. You're not giving me a reason to keep
Exactly.
reading the series. Uh, so that is so like so I there's bits and pieces to the character every time I have a new book, and I build upon those pieces. So the foundation is one and I just brick by brick, and eventually you'll get an origin story. That's coming, and that's definitely on the horizon. But right now, I just my goal as a creator and the writer is to want you to learn that this man has this superhuman trait, I call it a meta trait that we don't know where it came from. We don't know why he has it, but he has it.
Hmm.
And he has this suit, and he has this suit that has this technology. Why does he have that?
Right.
And so and why does who's this person talking to him? And who's all it's all intentional. And it's and that I like breadcrumbs. I love the breadcrumb approach to things. So
And honestly, from somebody like me who I have OCD, so I'll be reading through most of these things, not yours in particular, but other ones, and it's like I need more now. I can't sleep. I need more of this. With yours, it actually kind of all encompasses the story that you are telling at the time by still
sure.
leaving breadcrumbs in there. So it's awesome the way that it's
Yeah.
done that way.
I treat my books kind of like I always said that like they're not specifically numbered. They are in an order. But I treat them like James Bond movies.
Yes,
It's like the convictor is here and this is what he's doing now. That's why that's why each book has a title. So it's convictor series, but this is what he's doing now. So I because I like that it's self-encapsulated but it also is connected. So that's kind of what I shoot for.
absolutely. Now, it's a good thing that you brought up about, Bond movies and stuff, because what good is a Bond movie without a Bond villain? And this is what we're going to kind of streamline into where we're going to talk about the current campaign on here, which is Unhinged.
Yep.
Which, number one, I would love to hear how you come up with the name on that one, because this
All right.
is, of course, the main villain on here.
Yep.
It's go time, bitches. I love that. I mean, that says it all right there. Uh, how did you come up with the name Unhinged? For this particular book.
Okay. Well, the villain that I've debuted this villain. I mean, we'll talk more about him, but he is the antithesis to my convictor. He is literally the convictor's arch nemesis, and very much the Joker to my convictor's Batman. That's what he is. Uh, so he is unstable. I mean, it's hard to say without getting the book, but he is an unstable individual. That's why, he looks you got to be kind of off the rocker if you're wearing like a round yellow helmet in primary colors, and I call him the murder machine. That is his moniker. And his name is Happy Boy, and he is literally off the rails. He's homicidal. He's genocidal. He's a psychopath.
Hmm.
And there's a wrinkle to the story that I can't really talk about. Once you get unhinged, that you'll see that that he is very much a uh for the best description I can give you, he is unpredictable. And
Hmm.
that is what makes now the convictor is a methodical character. Happy Boy is an unpredictable, and Happy Boy, like you see here, this is also prone to monologuing, and he likes jokes. He is very much. This is actually something that was inspired from a scene in our book. So I can tell you, like sometimes these posters are a little spoilery. That gives you a glimpse into what you will see on the Unhinged book. So I came up with the title because Happy Boy himself is unhinged. He is an individual that knows excess in the sense that it's that's a promotional poster I did with Happy Boy versus my buddy Jack, who's running Colt Deadly Delights. So we
Hmm.
did a cross promotional. So it was his hero against my villain, and that's right. That's how Happy Boy fights. He is very acrobatic. He is very deadly, and he so so we went with Unhinged because that suits his personality to me. He is he is unpredictable. Like I said, he is off his rocker. He is deadly. He doesn't kill because there's a reason. He kills because it's there.
Hmm.
That's the difference. He's not a serial killer because sometimes the motive. I mean, yes, he kills, but it's not motivated particularly by a an overall reason. He does it because it's there. He doesn't. It's the only reason why he does. And he is. So we went with Unhinged. I felt it suited the character. So I
Hmm.
sat back. I look at. It, I said, "What cat? I could have called it Happy Boy. I could have called it lots of
Right.
things, but Unhinged because I also am a huge fan of dual meanings.
Yes.
I very much love double meanings on things, and the title is no different.
Hmm.
The Convictor is a closed off character. You'll discover in this book what I can tell you is that a lot of his past he is distanced from, and it's not entirely by his choice. So he doesn't, to recall his past is awful. Sometimes could be a foggy memory. It could seem like it's not even his life, and it's 20 years ago.
Hmm.
That's intentional by an outside force. Now, to keep him doing what he's doing currently. S- Happy Boy has a his own particular meta gift. Like the Convictor has indomitable will, which I said. Happy Boy kind of has his own where he knows things. He has a lot. His access of information is almost, for lack of a better word, divine, if you will.
Hmm.
He is, I would say, omniscience, right? That's him. He just knows stuff, and he is able to shed some light on the Convictor's past. And in essence, the unhinged title is also the Convictor keeps his life and his emotions are all locked in a box in
Hmm.
some, trunk somewhere right deep in his mind. Well, it becomes unhinged in this. Thanks to Happy Boy. So that's kind of where I went with it. I felt it suited, and that's what I ran with.
Now,
And I
I
like it.
of the different tiers you got on here, of course, I'm going to show a couple other ones and everything.
Hmm.
This one really got my attention for a couple of reasons. Number one, you can't go wrong with a blood-soaked happy face. I mean, we've already seen
Yeah,
the
right,
image on one of the things, and that's great.
right, right.
And you decided to go ahead and just market it on merchandise. So I'm looking at the T-shirt, going, I can see you walking around with that thing, and people going, "Why would you have that?" And then you get to mention to them, "Hey, this is a comic book. You got to get on this thing."
Yeah.
But
And we had
everybody,
to do it I had to do it in Happy Boy's color scheme, of course.
oh yeah,
So it was
everybody that
perfect.
knows me knows this right here. That coffee cup right there, that thing must be in my possession because I drink so
I
much
love
coffee and
mugs.
everything anyway. Might as well show it
Yeah.
off. And that
Yep.
kind of shows the mood. It's like, do you really want to mess with somebody who hasn't had all their coffee yet and shows that off?
That's right.
So that's awesome
And
that you
let's if
market it like that.
oh, thank you. I just wanted to yes, a happy face, especially is soaked in blood. It's one thing if we see it from other comics and stuff, it's a little splatter of blood. Well, this character doesn't do a little of anything.
Hmm.
There is quite I can without being spoiler, I can tell you that there is quite a killing spree in this book from the character to establish that the type of character that he is. Because in my previous Kickstarter for the book before this, which was Resurgence,
Hmm.
we had a top tier where you would get drawn into this comic, you'd be drawn into Unhinged and be killed by Happy Boy. So just so everyone understands, I had 12 purchases of that tier. So I can promise you there are literally 12 people that are gonna be killed in the spray. so
Awesome. That
and
is
he
awesome.
and he's very creative in the way he kills. He is, sometimes pistol, sometimes his hands, sometimes a blade, sometimes all three. He's a if you had the previous book Resurgence, he kind of literally came in with a bang,
Hmm.
and to establish that this is what you're going to be dealing with, and this book Unhinged is literally takes place hours after that book. And that's why if you look here on this tier, you see the broken happy face, the broken cover. That if you hold that up to my Resurgence book, it's a matching cover. It's
Oh,
literally
okay.
the same cover. Yeah, that was done intentionally because they are literally, even though they're two separate encapsulated stories, they do take place mere hours together. So even though they're individual stories, they are also very tightly connected stories. So it's almost like having a set.
That That is great, and yeah, I can definitely see that being on my wall with right next to each other. That'd be looking great. Uh, Now, I want to kind of go back because people who may not be, familiar with what you've done with this series so far, you've actually had, they're thinking this is a terrible, villain to go up against, and so much
Yeah.
in there and everything. And he must have had a somewhat of an easy time leading up to this. He went against, if I'm not mistaken, would that be Dracula that he went up against? Was it not?
My first book, Dracula was the overall villain. He was the Emperor Palpatine in that series,
Yes.
and the Convictor faced the Wolfman, which was basically Vader, our Darth Vader, and yeah, and it was Dracula was Dracula had his own agenda, and Dracula is part of a much larger story for my series as well. He belongs to this cabal of villains, and Dracula kind of goes rogue
Hmm.
because there may or may not be a plan for the Convictor from this large cabal called the 13, right? So Dracula doesn't want to listen to the 13. So Dracula's like, no. Dracula in my universe, in my first book, it's hard to reinvent Dracula. He's
Hmm.
been done a bajillion times. He is he's blah blah blah. He's that Dracula. Or he's super sexy vampire. He's been done to death, right? Literally, pun intended. And so I had to step back and look at the character, and I decided that I wanted to make him, if he's been alive for 1,000 years, and he's so powerful at this point that he is able. So I took a lot of liberty with how powerful he was, and I took a lot of liberty with making him a pompous asshole. Like I made him so full of his own shit. Because if someone's been around and unchallenged for thousands of years, what do you get?
Hmm.
You get somebody that is kind of believing, we used to say in the professional wrestling business or in the fight business, kind of believing their own hype.
Hmm.
And that's what Dracula was doing. So Dracula did not like the Convictor. He did not like that he knows there's a character who's able to manipulate darkness. He knows there's a character that people fear in the night, and it's not Dracula. It's not the vampire. It's not. So Dracula says, you know what? He calls his dog. He takes the Wolfman out of retirement, if you will,
Hmm.
and sends him uh, to kill the Convictor. And of course, it doesn't go to spec. Damn near goes to plan, but it doesn't go to spec. And that story has its whole other two other issues that we're going to tackle next year because that was a trilogy book. Because I really want to visit that because Dracula needs his comeuppance. Yeah, and I can't wait for that. But yeah, that was a great book.
No, I'm with you on that one. I can't wait for that because that's why I wanted to bring up that I don't want people to think that you've taken it easy on the Convictor
Oh,
throughout this
no,
thing. I mean,
no,
and
no,
I haven't
not
seen
even
him
close.
as of yet with Happy Boy,
Yeah,
so I can only imagine because he hasn't had anything easy up to this point. How Happy
right.
Boy is going to put him to the test, and
In
I'm very
in the
interested to see how that's going to go.
yeah, in the first Convicted book in Hunter's Moon, my job as the writer was to establish that he can take a beating that to the point where it's a detriment to his well-being. Like I need to establish that because that is a very large part of who he is.
Hmm.
Um, so I spent that whole book literally 20 some odd pages of him getting the holy hell beat out of him and still getting up until finally his body fails him. Um, so I need to establish that. I need to establish that defensive, like he was on the defensive in that book. He fought something in my universe. There was never there was no werewolves.
Hmm.
They were, people aren't familiar with werewolves. So the Wolfman that you saw in Hunter's Moon is the first of his kind. There
Right.
was no information on him. And, the Convictor has a technological based system that likes to accumulate information for battlefield purposes. So that was on display. Like there was no information, so the Convictor didn't have an edge. Convictor is formidable. He's a formidable adversaries. But my Wolfman was every bit of 6'8", 500 pounds. And so it's hard to formulate a plan against that. Now he didn't back down. I didn't say that,
Right.
but it was hard to fight. So I spent a good portion of that book to take the Convictor out of the comfort zone I've built for him as his creator and put him on the defensive that whole book. And then our next book, which was Resurgence, I did the opposite.
Hmm.
I showed what he's like when he's on the offensive, when he's the predator. And so that was again intentional to show two different facets of his personality. I had a Chris, my friend Chris from Homebrewed Comics,
Hmm.
said it best, and I always hang on to this. He said the Convictor is a normal man against a superhuman foe like the Wolfman.
Hmm.
But the Convictor against regular humans like the gang members in Resurgence is very much superhuman.
Hmm.
So I need to show that that was there was the defining line for the character.
Oh yeah.
Uh, yeah, and that
Yeah,
was a
it's
bloodbath, that
and
book.
you can definitely see that too. Whenever you read through the previous stories, you
Right,
can see where that human factor is still in there. He is not of divine power to
right,
everyone that's out there and everything that's going on, because whenever you start throwing in divine elements,
right.
he's kind of below their level, but he will
Mhm.
not back down. He will
No,
not flinch at
he
all.
can't. It's not within him, and that's the
Yeah.
thing is like he just won't. He couldn't if he wanted to, and that is like I said, that is the weakness aspect of that really cool power that he has.
Hmm.
Uh, so yeah, he couldn't if he's just never say die because he couldn't utter the words.
Exactly. Now you've done this will be your third campaign,
Right.
correct?
Yes, yes, sir.
This is your third campaign. The question that I always kind of like to ask, especially whenever you got multiple campaigns on there, what is the one thing that you've learned going through your other two campaigns that you may have learned from this one as well that you want to pull into your next one? What's one positive that you've learned that you definitely want to take with you into other campaigns?
Uh, be out there talking about your product. 100%.
Yeah.
The reason my first book, I was told by several sources, by peers that I respect greatly in the community, that the reason why they back my book is because I was passionate about my book.
Yes.
Like, and passion is, I've said this before, passion is palpable. If you want someone to buy into what you're selling or talking about, you better be buying into what you're selling or talking about.
Hmm.
And I was told over and over that because I was doing lives before I ever went to my first Kickstarter, I was drawing the character and just people would ask questions, I would answer because I mean, I've had this character in my head for 40 years. I know everything about him. I've
Hmm.
had a lot of time to work him out, and so that's what I was told repeatedly. So I mean, so what I could say is be out there in front of people, be passionate about your project. If you want me to care about it, you need to care about it,
Yes.
and that's going to allow me to care about it because that
Yes.
and like I said, be passionate, be out there. Don't I've seen other guys in the community that they go on lives or interviews and they ask about their character and they say things like, "Well, I can't really talk about that until the because that'll give away to stuff." I'm like, listen, if you're not talking about your character, no one's going to give an s about it.
Hmm.
You gotta talk about it, and that's why I always told. I was like, people cared about the Convictor because I was so open about him.
Yes.
And, so yeah, so that's my best piece of advice, and I will always be out there, or I'll always be talking. My face goes with his brand, you know what I mean?
Yep.
I want people to understand that. So, yeah, definitely be into what you want others to be into. That's for sure.
And you obviously you succeeded in that greatly, because if memory serves me correctly, 2 years ago, whenever you had Hunter's Moon on campaign, yours was one of the first ones that I chose on my birthday wish week.
Yep, I
That I
remember.
tried to make sure that I picked out, I think it was 10 or 12 of them. And I said,
Mhm,
and yours was the first one. And I said, I want this thing fully funded by the time my birthday hits. And I gave it a week
yep,
on there. And every one that I chose fully funded, including
yep,
yours,
yep,
which was
yep.
awesome, because that shows the power that everyone has within themselves to share
Oh,
things
yeah.
out, to get things put out there, that you never know what eyes can fall on it that would actually help out. So, I mean, you saying that you got to have that passion to put it out there, that definitely resonated with me to go, you know what? I see it in him. Why should I be any different? Let me put it on my
Right.
show and put it out there. And
That's true.
it, hopefully we get something for that.
Yeah, I will tell you, like last night, I'll give you an example. Last night, I jumped on Instagram Live just through my Convictor channel. I jumped on there just talking about because we funded on this book in 10 hours, and then we hit our first stretch goal literally the next day.
Mhm.
And we're actually $18 at the recording of this. I'm $18 away from our second stretch goal.
Nice.
Uh, yeah, we're doing really well. And so I got on to thank folks and just talk about where we're going with it. And I picked up $100 backer just from jumping on it live. Someone happened to come through and saw it, and he asked me some questions about it, and I answered them. And lo and behold, they backed me this morning for for $100 for the top
Nice.
tier. So that's crazy. So yeah, get your face out there, talk. Don't be afraid to talk. You can't expect people to come to your project. You have to bring the project to them sometimes, for sure.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Now, leading into the future of this IP here, are we going to be seeing any kind of spin-offs off of this, or is this going to be a
Yeah.
world building thing, or what are we looking at?
The Convictor series itself is finite. It has it definitely has an end, and that's mostly my focus now. I am spinning off some other characters of my larger universe. I'll be doing a anthology book later in the year for those because they're mostly sci-fi, fantasy-based characters, all existing within the same world. But my Convictor series is very much street-based. Um, but the Convictor series itself definitely has a definitive end. I think I've had it scheduled out for 13 books. 13 is my favorite number, and yeah, I know. But so I have it through that. But there are some spin-offs. Like I said, I have a female character that I haven't even really debuted her in a comic yet,
Hmm.
but she is from the Convictor's world, and she is insanely popular. And so I need to do something with that. I very much listen to my fans.
Hmm.
The reason why Hunter's Moon was my first book was because the fans asked for it. That was not supposed to be the first Convictor. It wasn't even part of the Convictor story. I had to ingrain it into the Convictor mythos and make it work. The
Hmm.
original my previous book, which was Resurgence really was supposed to be the first Convictor book. But I listened to the fans. My fans, there was an idea out there of having the Convictor fight a movie monster, classic monster. So it kind of took a life. And you know what? I said, who am I not to listen to what they're saying?
Hmm.
I can make it work. I sat down, I looked at my overall story arc. I said, how can I make this work? And believe it or not, it fit pretty seamlessly, just a little small tweaks to the overall story, and it went right in there. So same thing with my character Conjure. She is, she's just a very immensely powerful sorceress, and she is very important to the Convictor story arc. She has a very pivotal part to that, and fans like her. I get a lot of fan art. I get lot of questions about her, so I got to do something with her. As a matter of fact, she's going to be debuting in one of my anthology books with her own little side story
Nice.
because of that. Yeah, so there's definitely if there's the Convictor's my focus, but if there's something that fans are gravitating towards, I'm gonna listen. I
Hmm.
am not. I am no bit. I am certainly. I'm in the position I am because of my fan base. I am not bigger than my fan base, and the moment that happens, that I probably should hang up, making comics. So I'm doing this because people believed in me to do it. So that's why I'm here. So I'm gonna listen. If they're talking chatter out there, I'm gonna listen to it, and we'll always try to make it work.
Awesome. And that is the best way to do it is listen to what the fans are saying and get that pulse that's out there, because if
Mhm.
you're putting your passion into it and they're picking up on that and their pulse is starting to heighten at certain areas on there, and you're able to alter some things, slightly to fit their
Sure.
needs on there, and you can achieve that like you have, that's awesome to be able to do that. Not everyone
I
can, but
will.
people write it out for, like, the entire, like you said, you want to do 13, they would
Yeah.
have 13 already written out and say, I'm sorry, it's written in the way that it is. I can't change it.
Yeah, I won't do that because I try to, even though there are key points that I keep cemented, but
Mhm.
there is some fluidity that's allowed in there. Uh, you know, I wouldn't have had my first book if I was that way, and I'm very pleased with how Hunter's Moon was because it gave me an opportunity to show a different the instead of building this arc about how my character could take a beating over books, I did it in one book and got that out of the way,
Yep.
and then I also got a really cool werewolf out of it, so now I can use him. It's another character that another string that I can pull on, and I have plans for him. He's another character that I have another plans for because you saw in that book, how Dracula treated him. You saw that it was very much a master versus slave and very, very toxic.
Yes.
And he was able to almost smart Hulk it, and but not so smart, and but take control and realize that it's not a curse. Maybe this curse can be a gift. Maybe you can use this curse to help other people. So there's kind of that. So I do have plans for that, and I wouldn't have gotten that if it wasn't for the fans saying, "Hey, can we have a book with Convictor fighting the vampires and werewolves?" So I'm like, "Of course,
There you go. I mean, you can't go wrong with that, and
yeah,
you can't go wrong with what you've got in this new one that you've got here, because I mean, this one unhinged is right. I mean, you mentioned what it was. I had my idea just from kind of looking through the graphics that
yeah,
were here, and I had my idea of what we are going with on that. But I'm gonna go ahead. I'm about to give you full screen on this one. You're gonna let everybody know why they need to get over there and support in any way they can on this particular campaign. Before I give you full screen, just want to go ahead and bring up the two hashtags that we always use on all my shows now, which are number one, the power of the finger,
power
the
of the
correct one
finger.
if you
Yep.
can. Hit that share button, get those shares out there. It costs you absolutely nothing to share something. We understand not everybody can financially back everything that's out there. That's just
Right.
impossible to do. Um, Unless you're friends with, a Gates or someone else like that. But anyway.
Right, right, right.
But you never know if the power of the finger might actually get this in front of a Gates or somebody like that as well.
Never
So
know.
use that power of the finger, but you use that to increase the voice of the indies. That's the other hashtag that we've got on here. I was labeled with that name a few years back by Larry Higgins of Niobe, and I don't want to take it as a personal name. It's a conglomerate, is the way I look at it. So the voice of the indies is the way that we all work together to get a bigger spotlight, to get a bigger voice
Right.
on what's happening in the indies. So use the power of the finger, increase the voice of the indies, and get over there to Convictor and see what's going on, because Jason's going to let you know exactly why you need to get over there right now.
Okay. So the Convictor Unhinged, right? Let's talk about this. The Convictor is so far leading up to the Unhinged comic. The Convictor has been an urban legend within the city of Gut, right? And he is they talk about him in whispers. No one believes he's real. He's they called the Ghost Walker. He's called the Thousand Eyed Knight because the stories of the denizens are always saying, if you do something wicked, the Convictor will come for you. Um, Now, fast forward, they don't believe he's real. Well, he's real. He's absolutely real. And that was, Dracula knew it. First book, Dracula sent the Wolfman after him. Second book, after that, the world was up in turmoil because of something Dracula did in my first novel. So the gangs of Gut City are kind of running rampant because they think the end is nigh. And the Convictor was willed by an outside force. He is an avatar of retribution. He is attached to an ancient primordial god, and he does not realize it. So he is being subconsciously influenced by this deity to to hunt down the wicked and purge them from this earth to make it habitable of for her return. She wants to return to this earth. So he purges 9 gang members, excessively wicked gang members, and uh, he takes them all out. He shows just exactly what it is when he's the predator. So that takes us to this book. A new villain shows up, a new foe, a very extraordinary foe. He's got a round yellow helmet. He is called Happy Boy. It's a smiley face. He's primary colors. He's blue and he's yellow, but he's deadly. And he too is claiming that he is an avatar, and he has been asked by his god, and we're not, you have to get the book to see who the god is, his god, to come to Gut City, seek out the Convictor, and defeat the Convictor so Happy Boy can be worthy of the mantle of Avatar. And so Happy Boy brings with him an extensive deadly arsenal of abilities, and also a lot of information about the Convictor's past that the Convictor may not know. So here we go. The Convictor is going to meet someone that is every bit his equal and may be able to unlock some uh, some questions to the Convictor's past, because right now, coming out of Resurgence book, the Convictor has a lot of questions. He's not sure if somebody else is pulling the strings on him, and why was he so excessive in the dismantling of the Trident's gang in the previous book. So the Convictor himself is reeling with a lot of questions, and so Happy Boy might be the key to those answers.
Very cool. I mean, we're definitely excited about this, being out there, and it's on campaign as we speak right now.
Mhm.
It is doing very well. Got a great trend going for it right now. We're getting into the whole stretch goal time, which is
Yep,
fun.
we
We get
are.
all the fun stuff that's added to it.
Oh yeah.
And this is a great story that's had a lot of push, from the very beginning on this, of the passion that's behind this. So don't think that this thing is lacking in any of that at all. It's probably got quite a bit more than the others leading up, because it's an ongoing building story here.
Right.
And I'm going to go ahead and stress this because I didn't stress this earlier, and I need to. We've already mentioned it, but I want to go ahead and say it full out. This is a mature book. This is not a
Yes. Oh yes. My first book, Hunter's Moon, was I kind of made it for the kids,
right.
because I had a lot of kids that were very interested in it. So, and my second book, Resurgence, was certainly not for the kids. We even had a warning label that we had printed and put on, said parental advisory, because the Convictor, that is what the Convictor stories have always been. Even when I made ash cans of them, the Convictor stories are 100% the very best of ultra violence, and he is his best when it's like that. It's hard to tone down the character. It can be done, but I feel I do a detriment to, I could not have told my previous book, Resurgence. I could not have done that in the same vein as Hunter's Moon, because
Right.
I needed to show the level of brutality that the Convictor was capable of, to get me to this book. And so I needed to do it, and I did it, and it was spectacular, and it was so refreshing to finally do. And again, I loved the Resurgent. I mean, I loved Hunter's Moon, but I was very refreshing to draw Resurgence in the manner that I have always drawn the Convictor. Because I will tell you that most of these books, even Unhinged, these book all have old black and white ash cans attached to them. A lot of these are from my old stories that I take bits and pieces, or just take the entire story, and you will see, like, granted, the previous book, Resurgence, I had a printing issue with those ash cans. I was not happy with those, but lesson learned, right? But that Resurgence was that those ash cans were that Resurgence book, and Unhinged is the same thing. I have Happy Bue's debut in a strip that I've made,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a lot of those scenes will make it to this book because I try to stay true to them. So yes, it is certainly mature. It is ultra violent. It is only going to get worse. I mean, this book will make Resurgence look like it was a children's coloring book, because of what you're going to see in this book. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Jason, I really appreciate you being on here tonight, and
Thank
go
you,
ahead and let
sir.
us know about the project, letting us know a little bit more about yourself and the
Thank you.
humanity and the passion that you put behind this, and how long it's taken to build up to this moment, but you've actually succeeded in doing so. I mean, it may have taken, like you said, decades of going
Yeah.
from an idea to what it is now, but you're proving that you're never too old to go ahead and give it a shot out there and see what happens, because ideas never grow old.
No. The only thing that happens now is you're 51 years old, and then you realize that your time might be finite, and that and that you really need to get these books out. That happens, but and that you kick yourself in the ass for waiting 20 years.
Yes,
But
definitely.
whatever.
It
It's
happens.
everything happens for a reason, right?
Exactly. And as long as you learn from it, then it's always a lesson learned,
That's
and
it.
move on.
I have a good team. I have guys that keep asking me. I have a couple guys that work for me now. I have and teammates really. I mean, they're definitely partners and peers. I have Dennis Valencia. I have Steve Kennedy, and I also have Robert Sherwood, who work with Farrow's Creative Studios, and they are always wanting to take things off my plate and say, "Hey, if we all did this, the Convictor books would get done much sooner." But I have to do it myself because it's my baby. He's always been my yeah, I have 2 main characters, and he's one of them, and I have to see it through. I have to do it. And but But side stories and stuff, no, those guys are jumping on and they want to, but I am yeah. So I'm kind of like self-imposed pressure. I didn't
No,
want to get this stuff done. I have a date in my head of when I'd like all the stories to be done. So it's it's about 4 years off. So we'll see. 5 years. We'll see.
not too bad at all.
Maybe.
Not too bad.
Yeah. If
Well,
I
I mean,
if I hit it by 60, I'll be fine.
there you go. There you go.
We'll see. Yeah.
Well, I definitely wish you all the luck in the world on this and
Thank you.
everything too. And of
Thank you.
course, luck being the thing for today because we're recording on St. Patty's, so it actually means something. There you go. That might actually be your lucky thing there.
Thank
Uh,
you.
but I'm kind of following this myself too personally because here I am almost 50 and I'm coming out with my first book, so I'm kind of feeling the
That's
same
right.
way you are on
No,
that.
it's a great feeling. It really is. It
Oh, it's
really is.
terrifying, but it feels great.
No, I know. It's exhilarating is the word, right? Yeah, like a roller coaster. Um,
Yes,
if can I give 2 shout outs if you don't mind? Is
absolutely.
that
Go right
okay?
ahead.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out because I launched the Convictor Unhinged launched the exact same moment as my fellow Savage Sandbox brother Jack Sloan of Slate Comics.
Mhm.
Jack launched Cult Deadly Delights. We had a mutual live launch, and he's running his campaign as well. So if you go to the Convictor Unhinged and you scroll down there, you get 3 exclusive posters, mini prints, if you back Unhinged and you back Cult Deadly Delights. It doesn't matter what tier you back. It doesn't have to be identical. Just if you back us both, you're going to get these exclusive prints, which have one of my characters fighting one of his, and there's 3 separate. It's fantastic. Other shout out I want to give out to I'm sure you know him, Ray Loecker of Fallen. I don't know
Mhm.
if you're right. He's on right now. Fallen #2 is out on Kickstarter. Uh, listen, you can't go wrong with the Fallen books. It's a guy that has the powers of a dragon. So I'm like, listen. So there was no. I enjoyed the first book, so I definitely. So he's running too. So these couple pals of mine. So I just if anybody's interested, yeah, of course, Unhinged as well. So
There you go. There you go. Well, again, thank you very much for being here. I
no,
certainly
I
appreciate
appreciate
you
it.
taking the time and being on here on Positive Influence. That is a main thing that I mean, the show says it all that it's positive influence on there, and we can't have that without guests just like yourself who come on
Thank
here
you.
and you just exude that in not only your projects but in your everyday life as well. Because we see a lot of the stuff that you post out there, and it's definitely got a lot of positivity to it, and definitely
I
appreciate you
try.
doing
I
that.
try. I try. Thank you. I appreciate it. And Phil, I want to thank you for what you do. Let's be honest. I mean, you are very selfless in all of this, and you're always out there, putting your best foot forward, trying to give us all, a spotlight on what we're doing. And so, I mean, you got to give yourself some credit too, for sure. Like, you were always one of the first people I reach out to when I got something going on, and you've always been a big supporter of mine. So thank you to you and for what you do. It's much appreciated by those of us in the community for sure.
I
So,
definitely appreciate that.
no, of course.
On that note, I'm gonna let everybody know that the link will be in the feeds. So all you have to do is go over there and click directly on the link. So you don't have to memorize whenever we had that up on here earlier. It's very easy to get to. Go over there to Convictor Unhinged and just see how unhinged you can be on there on the tiers and figure out what you want to get. There's a lot
I
of
even have
different.
an action. I have action figure. I got one left on that tier.
There
The
you
action
go.
figure tier was insanely popular.
There you go. So get over there, see what's going on with this thing, and don't forget Power of the Finger, Voice of the Indies. Don't forget those whenever you get over there, and make sure that you support in any way you possibly can. So until next time, thank you for watching Positive Influence. We'll see you on the next one. Keep it indie, y'all.
Right.